Well, government should even be looking in the future. 2050, might feel like a lifetime away, but a government that could look at this paper and say, hang on, this well-respected academic is saying that by 2050, in a generation, we could be consuming 60% of everything that the country produces. And of course, this is trying to look forward, sort of 40-ish years, and the situation will be completely different then. If we look at the way that, debt has accumulated, the global money supply has been pumped full of dollars, etc. This is a fantasy. It isn't going to happen, because by the time you get there, actually, the dollar will have melted down. America will be a completely socialist country, and I don't know, China, Russia, and God knows who else, maybe Europe, as a collective, will have come up with an alternate reserve currency, further compounding the issues in the US. So, if everything stays the same and it carries on as it is, government spending will be 60% of GDP, but it ain't going to continue like this, is it? And this is just an absolutely insane situation. I've got another note here that the Congressional Budget Office projects total revenues of 2.28 trillion and total outlays of 3.7 trillion, for a deficit, therefore, of 1.48 trillion. I mean, this is just incredible, isn't it? And the main reason that he's saying there's such an issue is the entitlement programs. The entitlement programs, again, are a very socialist thing. There always needs to be protection for people who can't look after themselves, or whatever, fall on hard times. That's part of a civilized society. But when it's structured to make people depend on it and not give them away off government benefits, as we call them here, then that's a problem. Again, another figure is that by 2050 the two programs of Social Security and Medicaid, I think it is, would consume 18.4% of GDP as the population ages. It's just incredible. There's some there's research as well from the Mercatus Centre, I think it is, that says the bottom 50% of earners in the US pay just 2.7% of federal income tax. So they generate 2.7% of federal income tax revenue, 50% of the workforce. And the top 10% pay nearly 70%. So that's a huge disparity in income, obviously. But the problem there then is you're limited to how much you could generate by raising income tax rates as well. So again, the answer is not increased taxes. Though I think the US, like Britain, have reduced taxes. Britain's put them back up in the recent budget. But you can't be messing around with taxes and interest rates and other pointless activities. The only way to address this financial situation is cuts, unfortunately. Cuts in government. Reducing government, going back to small government, just like people like Ron Paul say. They keep saying it, and clearly the evidence proves that. Hey folks, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the secret memos that got exposed that link oil firms and the invasion of Iraq. So, what was it, 2007? Oh, let's have a look on here, when was it? No, 2002, very mad. Yeah, 2002. We've got everybody, I remember Tony Blair coming out and saying it's completely ridiculous, the idea that we'd invade Iraq for oil, because if we wanted to, we'd just strike a deal with Saddam Hussein. And we get all the oil that we wanted. Got some more notes here. Lord Brown, the then BP chief, said, "It's not in my opinion, or BP's opinion, a war about oil. Iraq is an important producer, but it must decide what to do with its patrimony and oil. It must decide, Iraq must decide." But then there's a leaked memo from the Foreign Office, from a meeting between the Foreign Office in the UK and BP, 13th of November 2002. Iraq is the big oil prospect. BP are desperate to get in there and anxious that political deals should not deny them the opportunity to compete on equal terms. So there was concern at BP, and another company, I can't remember, that the British government needed to go and lobby Bush essentially to say, hey, when you carve up the country in terms of its resources, make sure we get a fair share, given that we are going to go in and help you, go and kick Saddam's ass. So they're constantly going about weapons of mass destruction. Saddam's going to unleash them against God knows who in the area. Therefore, we need to go in. It's not about the oil, and it was. There are official government documents stating that BP were having meetings with the Foreign Office and petitioning our own politicians to go and have a word with Bush in order to get decent deals. There's, it was 5 months before March 2003 when the invasion started that one of our politicians, Baroness Simmons, the then Trade Minister, told BP that the government believed British energy firms should be given a share of Iraq's enormous oil and gas reserves as a reward for military action. She agreed to lobby the Bush administration on BP's behalf because the oil giant feared it was being locked out of deals that Washington was quietly striking with US, French and Russian governments and their energy firms. Incredible, but it's not about oil, but here we are with Shell and BP literally not able to keep their hands off the oil in Iraq, and I guess commercially worrying that if they got locked out, then other companies would obviously have a bigger market share in the world, because obviously it's a global commodity. It says here 20-year contract signed in the wake of the invasion were the largest in the history of the oil industry. They covered half of Iraq's reserves, 60 billion barrels of oil, brought up to companies such as BP and China National Petroleum Company, brought up by them, whose joint consortium alone stood to make $658 million profit per year from one oil field in southern Iraq. Absolutely phenomenal figures. You bet we went in there for the oil, no doubt about it. Over 1,000 documents, it says, obtained under the Freedom of Information Act that we have here in the UK, show 5 meetings were held between civil servants, British civil servants, ministers, BP and Shell in late 2002. 5 meetings, purposeful meetings to thrash out how they were going to lobby the American government and get their hands on a share of the oil. Absolutely crazy. There's a handy map in the Independent. I tweeted about these proven oil reserves. Saudi Arabia 262 billion barrels, Iran 136 billion, Iraq 115 billion, with the estimation there's another 100 billion that is still there but not confirmed because they used I think the older 2D seismic images instead of the current 3D ones, if I'm getting that correct. And Kuwait 101 billion. So we've got Kuwait, Iraq 216 billion, Iran 136 billion. So no wonder they've got an eye on Iran as well, especially now that Saudi Arabia is getting on a bit tetchy, starting to rush to China and Russia for protection essentially. That's what happens when you don't roll over and play nice to the American. I was going to say the American government there, but it's not the American government, is it? The American shadow government, and the British one as well. That's incredible. So here it is confirmed in documentation, actually. Can you see that? Yeah. Is that going to work? There we go. Iraq is the big oil prospect. BP are desperate to get in there and anxious that political deals should not deny them the opportunity to compete on equal terms. 13th of November 2002. Fantastic. Lied to constantly lied to. All the time. We know that. People on the street don't. Absolutely incredible.